who knows exactly what kind of imprints you have, who knows what kind of obstructions you have, and so forth. So this is why it's so important to become a Buddha. So to find a person who has these qualities of such a Buddha, and that is very difficult. So that is difficult. So how to find a teacher who has those abilities and able to guide them.
我们这些刚才讲的这种状况之下呢，他给我们的口诀或给我们的这种指导，当然就可以让我们就变成是跟我们非常非常的契合。其实说实在的，这其实就是为什么我们要成佛的原因。那所以呢，如果今天你说你要找到是这样的老师，等于是你只要问我们说，那我们要怎么样找到像佛一样的老师？那这个其实是一个很困难的事情。
제 단계는 어떤데? 이내 하게 제작이 내단 기재 시에는 소디 하게 롭종지 체니. 로 시람 제부 람티기들 좀 간데간데 조고 유메 지남샤디 직신 신비체라 아니 수신내당 가데지 돌라나 수수수수기 주고 제도해지. 다 롭종체니 명이 당부지이나 다 랍조전이 되기다만 신 기행지 크도 키는 뭐도 갈래 가고 싶으로 하다. 단도에 기행래 집을 시다요. 그게 가시 산지자를 주시고 저도 산지 코랑 대가 최만한 것이 인도인들 잘 단거. 그런 교환하면 제로요 되죠. 그래서 디지털이 다 카드 캐나 모두 먼저 다시 개미도. 단단 먼저 나벌 이어버디 되기다만 하신 좀 진 선점도 하고나 다 맞아 보이나 세디의 신자도 세디기 있다. 번저로 아니 계좌 디지털의 신자유디 다 뒤도야기 답시디 기부 중이다. 레벨의 손세유디 마시라지래. 세치면 삼대에서 커려온디 야 세치면 대화 중간에 자신 게임 것도 되게 디지털인데 기부디 팅기 섬로디 마다랑다래 디 장고에 차대래 디마자와 타드는 단지도 투되기도 다음에 로저 제레디 샘팅이 다다 담도 삼백이 이시 게임도 디지털이다 다음에 로저 지유래 무튼이 제공 마제랑 제래 아니 다 상계 마지기 자와 전주기 샘래 전주 샘다 소설 뒤에 따주로 와다 참 아랭이의 슝의 시에버디 하고 하지 슝도 좀 맞잖아 가시기 따라서 닝지 춘주지 제가 대발에 지소나로도 미세마 삼부지 감사 전주 샘바래 스팅라이도 쇼진의 직다 지기로 와 이내 슝의 시비 전주 샘바디도 그런 통대에 되기 토네 춘인 디 카가로 와다 지선 로종디 계시셔래도 대신 다 로종디 제시세대 수수 전주 샘바 이미 수하고 그도 전주 샘바 많이 당겨다 전주 샘기에 다시 지주래 디게디 미중 장선 양대의 따와의 마중보도 어느 상기에기 처럼 야부지 다다지 리교 말에 디인체다다 아니 자기 친구들 들어요나 뭐 저거 친구들 들어요나 상어디버들 들어요나 기체도 슈레 기체를 셔봐 얘다 아니 처음 지대로 제나 아니 신에 아니 맞아요 이렇게 지시해지도 저진의 디디전에 배치지 지금 라도 가버려 이제 다가스레 지금 라도 가버려
So this is in general, this is the case in general. So the first part of his answer, this is true in general. But in particular, to be more specific, well, if we really study, if one really gets a good understanding of Buddhist teachings, one studies well, one contemplates well, so studies the basis, the path, and the result. So the different stages of the path, one knows well the basis of the basic kind of explanation of phenomena, when one knows that well then in that way one knows what one needs to do, what needs to be done, what is the appropriate way of going about it. One has that kind of, one develops that kind of expertise. One can rely on oneself in order to know I need to do this, but I need to do something else. Of course, we may be fortunate due to previous imprints and so forth to meet a very appropriate teacher, to then receive these teachings if you're fortunate. But there's even times when someone met the Buddha, approached the Buddha and requested for teachings, and the Buddha sent this person away to a different teacher. Why? Because they had a karmic connection with a different teacher. So therefore, what can we really do ourselves? So what is it that we can do ourselves to really be able to guide ourselves? So the idea is here that to study, to have a good understanding, and then to check what is your own motivation, what is one's own
他知道
motivation. So
他现在
Geshe-la is saying,
对此
if
生活
I
就有
were
非
to
常非
only
常
be
多的贪着，
interested in
因为他有看
riches,
到自己
in material
贪着，
phenomena,
所以
in
他知道这个是
reputation
他现
and
在
so
必须要
forth,
去
well
努力
then
消除
I
的
should
这
follow
些
the teachings
必须要
of
努
a
力去消除
person
的，必
of
须在这个上面去努力。
weaker
那怎么样在这个
aspirations,
上面努
smaller
力呢？那就是
aspirations.
在下士道
So
的那个
which
上面
teaches
多多
about
去努力
next。life,
那
which
他也
teaches
看到
about
说，
the
虽然他也
happiness
有
in
去
next
思考
life,
一
in
些
the
关于
next
来世
life.
的事情，但
If
他
on the
思
other
考来
hand,
世自己要
I'm
过
not
成怎么样的一
interested
个
in
怎么样的状况的时候，他知道
happiness
在这个思
of
考过
just
程
this
中，他其实
lifetime,
对于来世，因这个
rather
人是
I'm
有着贪
interested
着
in
的
the
这样子。那
happiness
通
of
过这样
future
子的一个认识，
lifetime,
他知道他
then
必
I
须要
should
在中
follow
之
the
道的部分
teaching
去努
of
力，
a
才
person
能够
of
消除
middling
掉他自己对
aspirations.
轮回的种种的贪
And,
着。
and
同
then
时呢，
these
他明
teachings
白
are
为
the
什么他自
teachings
己
that
会
take
对
a person
今
to
生或是来世
liberation.
对于轮
So in
回
order to
还有这个
reach
贪
such
着呢，主要的根
liberation,
源
I need to
原因是什么？因为
eliminate
他还有
the
我执。那
awareness
虽
that
然老师
arises
他
of
自
the
己呢
self,
是的
and
确
I
是
can
学了一
only
些
do
无
so
的
by
道理，但是
understanding
他
by
所觉得这些
realizing
无的道理呢，
selflessness.
并没
So
有真
now
正
I
在
have
他
to
内
find
心
the
里面产生
methods
真正的
for
理解，因
understanding
此才会有刚
selflessness,
刚我们
study
说的
about
这
it,
种
and
情况发生。
contemplate it,
所以对
and
他来
so
讲，他其
forth
实要
to
做什么事
understand
情呢？一样就
selflessness.
是必须
And
继
then
续
with
的
regard
在
to
无我的修饰
attaining
上面
full
继续
enlightenment,
维持，
becoming
继续
fully
努力才行这
enlightened,
样子。
well, one
那
has
我们
to
说能够
generate
成佛的根本是什
bodhicitta,
么？
one has
就
to
是要有菩
generate
提心
the。mind of
那
enlightenment.
那我们就
And
可以
that
自
is
己检查
often
看看自己
misunderstood
到
or
底有没有菩提心。
misunderstood.
当
What
然，
does that
我们
mind
要能够
actually
检查自己
refer
心
to?
到底有没有
What
菩提
is
心。首先，我
bodhicitta,
们必
the
须透
mind
过
of
学习经
enlightenment?
论而认
So
识
there's
所
a
谓的
lot
菩
of
提心它指的是什么
misunderstanding.
意思。那
Sometimes
社
we
会上
see
有
a
些人他
person
们并没有学习
who's
经论，
very
我们看到有
kind-hearted,
些
who
人
treats
好像做
others
了一些
with
好事，
compassion,
或者
and
是
we
呢
right
对我
away
们
think,
付出
oh,
了
what a
什么，伸
bodhisattva.
出援手，对我们
So we
同
have a
情，
sense
我
this
们就会
person is a
用着啊，
bodhisattva,
你
but
真是一个大
whether
菩
that
萨，
person
这样子的
really
名
is
字
or
去说
is
对方
not,
这样。
we
当然，
can
说
find
这样
out
子的
by
名字
understanding
呢，
what it
也
means to
也
be
是
a
无伤害的，
bodhisattva,
但
what
是
it
呢，
means to
这
have
种定
bodhicitta.
义就是这
So by
这种
understanding,
说
by
这种
studying
对
well,
有一点点
one
连
then
就叫菩
can
萨的话
understand
呢，其实就跟经
whatever
文里面
needs
所
to
定
be
义的这种
understood,
菩
or
萨
one can,
是
one oneself
并不非常
is able to
因此从这里我们可以知道说呢，学
take
习本
oneself
身
to
这是一
enlightenment
件
in the
非
sense
常
that
非常重要的
one
事
is
情，
able
这样
to
子。
generate,
那
for
所以要
example,
说以后呢，
bodhicitta.
当我
But
们如果了解
bodhicitta,
到什么叫
without
做
an
菩萨的话
understanding,
呢，
well, without
我就可以
realization,
透过
without
我
a
所了
view
解
of
的标准
emptiness,
来自己判
again,
断自己是
is
不是
not
菩萨
enough.
的这样子。那如果
So
自己现在还不是
thus,
菩萨的话，我们
to
当然
think
必
like,
须要
oh,
朝
may I
向
have a
才能够成
connection
为
to
菩萨的
Dzogchen,
这
may
件
I
事
have a
情上面
connection
去
with
努力。
Mahamudra, with
那我们要
Buddha
怎么样才
Samaja,
能够真正
and
的成
so
为菩萨
forth?
呢？
That
事实
is
上，如
just
果我们
something
要
that
追星
comes
菩提心
later
的
to
空正
connect
见的
to
话，
these
我们
very
这个目的
advanced
是
kind of
非常难
tantric
达到
teachings.
的。
That
因
should
此，
come
与其在现
later,
在这个位置上
connected
面
with，these
如果刚才
teachings
说的这些
should
我们
come
都还
much
没有，
later.
那与其去
So,
放眼去寻找说
so only
哪一个
then,
人是我的
with
大
this,
手印师长，哪一
with
个人
this
是
kind
我
of
的
study and
教导
understanding,
大圆满师
then
长，哪一个人可以
one's
教我
able
哪
to
些密
follow
咒圣的这
a
种
kind of
老
method
师
that
是
is
谁呢？
beneficial
与
for
其坐下
oneself
来寻找，
and
不
really
如先
have
设法让自己成就成为资粮道的行者吧。先设法让自己呢升起获得资粮道，在那个时候就说应该就会有老师来教你。
규기 규칙 나로라 된데 손이래 아니 다 중년들이 나기 취지 손인데 다디 자치고 싶지 손레스 아니 디 아니 미 간디치기 디도 주고레스 디레도 아니 창주심 검니 창주심 계속나 아니 신에 담아디 주고레스 디를 쉐고레스 창주심 마검니 마경이 지라 아니 파기 담아디 쉐다 파샤 길고 그래 다 주교 말레스 디송래 다 디송에 대해 아니 좀내데 장주심을 신고해야 되는지 아니 장주심 걔는 안 그런 가보여지 디도 셰셔스 장주심 마케나 디도 좀내네 마가오지가 디도 가비면도 딘디게 좀 말해 장주심 맹행질을 되게 라바나신 프레시고 펜도 요 말아 디기 송거 봐
So in one of the tantras, in one of the tantric scriptures, someone asks the Buddha, or approaches the Buddha and says to him, well, the dharmic teachings are said to be very precious, are going to be very precious, but what kind of person should engage in tantric practices? And Buddha's response is for someone to meditate, it should be someone who meditates on bodhicitta and who has cultivated bodhicitta. Someone who has meditated on bodhicitta and has cultivated bodhicitta in his or her own continuum. Without meditating on bodhicitta and without having actually generated or cultivated bodhicitta,
你有
bodhicitta,
修有升起
this
菩提
person
心
is，
那我
not
就很
allowed
喜
to
欢你，
even look
所
at
以
the
呢，我就
mandala.
让你修这个口
It's
诀。
not even
如果
look
你
at
没
it,
有
not
修佛
allowed
之
to
心，没有
even
修
look
开
at
的
the
心，我就不
mandala.
喜欢你，
So
所以我就
Vishala
不
is
给你
saying,
看这样口诀。是
is
这样
the
吗？
Buddha
当然
this
不
is
是。
saying this
那
because he's
为什
very
么佛陀会
attached
这
to
样说呢？
bodhicitta?
原因是因为
He's
如
very
果你没有
attached
修
to
菩
people
提
who
心，
have
而去进入
bodhicitta
密咒
and
上的
only
话，
a
就像我们刚
bodhisattva
才讲
can
的
do
第
it
四
because
项，
he has
你
that
就会变
strong
成一个只有
attachment.
高压
No,
可是没有
the
任何
Buddha
的
has an
食物
understanding
没有任何
that
的
without
食
bodhicitta,
材，没有
just
任何
having a
炉火
pressure
的
cooker
人一
is
样。
useless.
那在那个状况下，高压锅对你来说一点点用处都没有。
아니 다 되네 트레이닝 라우샤나 되기도 아니 단다 가시고래 저에 배전한데 데스 용디거 나디 단 요람레스 더버선지 다람레스 디송샤가 제선 디지디 전에 다 도장발 주는 시비 거그레스 칼레요레스 나디 치나 유부치 아니 레라베 토네 디지레라도 아니 디다 말주에 인가로 제베 지고 말어 되는 거네 이나 제가 이 세단이 초진의 그거지 유지를 초진의 디 견제네 아니 배상지에 시루지 타령으로 두고 가르레스나 돌아는 저나 딱 그거 뭐 고르고를 라기도 띵이 체투서 말했어 나진 조금진 체투고 두스래도 인도 맹이기 다 뒤르다 디지디자는 인도 매나 티버 치중세에 인도 치중도 돈을 셔봐 제가 인도 매나 되니 미치기 아니 상기 투여 그래요 말 가장 계지 중서 그진 장면송 거르거리세리 다 된다 다른 것도 생각이 상기도 말했어 그진 장면송도 디다 레라버려 와 디다 개개 말어 왔으나 아니 디디 미치기 있는 상기도 그랬어.
So there's something I would like to say in connection to this. So I might as well just say this here in connection to the answer I just gave. In the scriptures, the tantric path is explained as a quick path. As a path that takes a person to highest enlightenment in a short time with less difficulty. But if one were to take that as a reason, oh, I want to practice Tantra, why? Because it doesn't take a long time and because it's easy. So therefore, with this kind of taking that as a reason, well, actually thinking along those lines, it actually becomes a condition for one to not become a Buddha. Why? Because if one thinks, oh, it takes really long, I have to wait many eons, it takes countless eons to become a Buddha. If I just follow the tantric teachings, oh, I don't want to do this, this is too much work, I'm just going to go through the tantric text. That is a sign, or that is a, that shows that the person doesn't have a strong determination. And the difference between the Hinayana and the Mahayana, or the Theravada and the Mahayana teaching, is usually from the point of view of the strength of determination. And as also explained before, we talked about a person who feels that I cannot, this is, becoming a Buddha, it takes 3 countless eons, so I really can't do that. That person who thinks this is difficult will never become a Buddha. Whereas the person who thinks, oh, it's easy, it's okay, it's only 3 countless eons, no problem. So the person who has that sense that it's easy, that person can actually become Buddha. So that kind of determination is necessary.
可是反之，如果认为三大阿僧祇劫实在太短了，很容易有这种想法的人，反而比较容易成，反而是能够成佛的。
可来上节呢，这个都来对上节的人数专辑，年数专辑2月的，人数专辑，他来钱，那可来是你就想起的，可你们的钱，那上节的这个都来了，那人数多下的上节，天天满意嘛钱，那的本身钱呢，以内。 파기 가진 잠을 숨 걸네 걸 아니 배기 리치고 땅 거는 그 딱갈래 감지지 제거는 제 가리려 땅 거는 땅 세닝도 딘디지 깨네 아니 디지비 산지를 시부지기 아니 예를 두고 제상 가자 라바나시 아니 전주에서 못다도 뭐 처럼내 사기버부터 기와지를 로 하시는 거로 쳐래 띵하게 좀 말해 사기버 내 상들 내라로
Here we talk about going slowly, having the sense like, okay, I become enlightened slowly. There is a person, there are 2 people who have this attitude. One person who actually gets closer to enlightenment and one person who does not get closer to enlightenment. The 2 people. So the person by way of this attitude, by adopting the attitude, oh, it's okay that it takes a long time. The person who doesn't actually get closer to enlightenment is the person who says, oh, never mind, it takes a long time. I do a little bit of practice here and there. I do a little bit and then I rest and I do a little bit. So this type of person, it will be difficult for them. It will really be slowly to become a Buddha. But the person who has the attitude, however long it takes, it doesn't matter. There's
我
no
都没关系，
hardship
我愿意
that is
舍。
hard enough
在
for
我
me.
在这
Whatever
个
it
样的过
takes,
程当中，
I
你要
will
我
do
经
it.
历多
If
少的
I
辛
have to
苦，
give up
我
my
都可以，
body,
我都没
I
问题。
give it up.
在这
If
个
I
过程
have to
当中，
make
无论你要
sacrifices,
我
I will
舍
make
弃
the
什么，我
sacrifices.
都可以做得到，我
Whatever
都
needs
可
to
以
be。done,
那
I
当你
will
升
do
起
it.
这样自己
So
的
that
强大
type
的
of
心力，
person, with
在
that
用这样
kind
强
of
大的心力去想
determination,
着说，我即
even
使
though they
要漫漫
accept the
长路，我也
slow
没关
path,
系的话
they
呢，
will get
那这
closer
种
to
心力会
enlightenment.
让你呢离佛法
And
越
so
近。
previously we
因
spoke
此
of
呢，
the
就像我们在
bodhisattva,
前几
we
天的课
spoke
程当
about
中有讲到
the
的
person
长期菩萨，
always
他
crying,
之所以能够在这一生中，其实也
always
也
crying,
不
who
止
went
不到一生的时间，
very
但是在
quickly
几
from
个
the path
几
of
个月、
from
几
the
个月还
path
是
of
几年来
accumulation
段的
all
这
the
个
way up to
时
the
间里
eighth
面呢，
round.
他就从资
So
粮道
there's
世
a
界到
reason
了
for
八地
that
菩萨。
person
那
to be
其
able
实他
very
靠
quickly
的
in
并
one
不是我们
lifetime
讲到
to
密
go
咒称的
from
这种
this
快
very
速，
low
那
level
谈的
up
就是
to
刚才那样的
the
心
high
力，
level
而
of
是
the
说
eighth
一旦我们
of
真
the
正
eighth
到了八地
round.
菩
So
萨
there's a
那就
reason
容
for
易了。
such being possible.
야 교보 상계 구구도 수디 삼로 디기 턴에 링르 줘야지 요래 예르 줘야지 요래 링르 줘야지 다기 라바나시 다칼리 시비 접도서 말이 교보 상계 구구도 어 딘디치니 균 구투자 말이스 어 딘 라나 링르 줘샤 상계라 다 링르 줘샤 딘디게제 많이 버체 뭐랑 뭐네 그뒤지 가수 권을 걸까네 가수 유네 접투 이는다 선제 디기 등이 쉬우진 날 되요래 등이 충중 말이 친구 시부래 다 기지지 있는 교보 파게 타르고 구도 심진 되게 디 타르고도 다 디 타르와라 와상 마제는 직타 메디잖아 다 기지지 있는 교부상 제 구도 섬로 텐디지 코르는데 양 예를 줘봐 진짜 나게 두제디 섬로 텐디 유에딩이지 파게 또 저기 두제 레장 점닝지기 슉쳐 유에딩이지라 아니 신에 나게 대거디 송체 따다 디거다 그러니 저거를마도 신 따다 레거 말다
那同样的呢，想着要快快成佛的这个
So
想法
from
当
the
中
point
呢
of view of the，
他也可
person
能
who
会
adopts the attitude that they
引导
have to
成
become
离
enlightened
佛国会越
quickly,
远，也有可能会
again
引
we
导
can
成离
talk
佛会
about
国
two
会越
types
近
of
这两
people,
种
two
可能
types
性
of
这样
people.
子。那怎么
One
样的想法
person
呢？
is the
是
one
会让
having
快
that
快成佛这
attitude,
种
it
想
will
法，反而
take
让
them
你离
further
佛国会
away
越远
from
呢？就是
enlightenment,
你心
and
里想
then
着
there's
说，
the other one
要
who
成
gets
佛要花那
closer
么
to
长时间，太
enlightenment
长的时间
due
不
to
行，
this kind
我
of
没有办法
attitude.
等
So
那样
the
子
person
久
who
的时间，这样我没有办法
will
花那
not
么长的时
become
间去
closer,
成佛
who
这样。
will
那
not
因为
come
这样的想
closer
法而
to
想着说
enlightenment,
我要快快成佛的这种人，
because of this
那他的因为
attitude,
这种想要
will
快
be
快
the
成佛
one
的
who
想法，使
feels
他离佛
I
国会
cannot
越
work hard.
越久。
I
可
cannot
是我
work
今天
hard,
想着
so
要快
therefore
快
I
成佛的
should
想法是
practice
什
a
么呢？
quick path
他
of
想着说
tantra.
呢，对我
I
个人
cannot
来
wait
讲，
that
我要
long.
花多
It's
长
just
时
too
间
much.
我都没关
It
系。
takes
对
too
我个
much
人来讲，
time.
我在
So
这个
this
过程当
person
中
will
要
not
花
get
多少辛
closer
苦，我都愿
to
意。
enlightenment
但
due
是
to this
因为
attitude.
在这个同时呢，
Whereas
有
the
很
person
多有
who,
钱人
as
正在
explained
受着很大的这
before,
个苦。那我
however
非常
long
非
it
常的希
takes,
望
it
自己有
doesn't
钱能
matter.
够早一刹
So
呢
for my
能够
own
离开这种
personal,
受
for
苦
my
的
own
状况。
personal kind of,
那
for
为
my
了
own
让有钱能
personal
够早一刹
attitude,
呢离
I
开受
don't
苦的
care
状
how
况，所
long
以我
it
非
takes.
得
For
要
me
成佛
personally,
不
it
可。
can take a
那为
long
了能
time.
够让有钱
But
能够早一
if
刹
I
呢
look
离
at
开受
sentient
苦的状
beings,
况，所以我必须要
sentient
早一刹
beings,
那成佛。
it's
我
not
们
just
越
that they
快
have
成
small
佛，越能
problems,
够
they
帮
have
助有
great
钱能
problems,
够
they have
脱离
great
痛
suffering.
苦。
So if I could
带着这样
remove
子
the
的想
suffering
法
in
的
just
人
one
呢，
instant,
他
I
去
would
想
do
着说
this
快快
to
成
be
佛，
able to
那就会
benefit
让
them,
他
to
自己
quickly
呢
be
离
of
佛国会
benefit
越来
to
越
them.
靠
So
近。
even
说实
which
在的，
just
所谓
take
的
me
密
one
咒成佛
moment,
所化
well,
境，
I
真
will
正的
do
所
it
化境就
for
是
their
这样子的
benefit.
人。
So
那
this
对于
means
这样
that
子的
this
人来
type
说
of
呢，
person,
因为他们的菩提
they
心力
would
非
want
常的
to
强，
attain
那在菩提心力
enlightenment
非常强
quickly
的
for
状
the
况
benefit
当
of
中，
others
借
and
由密
only
咒
for the
禅
benefit
修
of
习，
others.
而是说就是一
So
种非常
therefore
深
it is
切，
said
他两个
that the kind of
对他来说是一
compassion,
种
the
非
kind
常
of
世切的一
strength
个道
of
路。那
bodhicitta
所以其实
in the
针对这
continuum
样
of
子
a
有这样
person
的
who
心力，
follows
有
the
这样
sutra
想法的
path,
人呢，
as
才
compared to a
讲
person
说
on the
他们
tantric
非
path,
常适合
their
走密咒
bodhicitta
这个
is
道路。
less strong. So the bodhicitta and the compassion that you find in the person of the tantric path is much stronger. Is much stronger because they would, for the benefits of as quick as possible, they want to become enlightened as quickly as possible in order to relieve sentient beings from their suffering.
这是他讲句什么的，当你路上去的做这， 아니 디가는 안 되게지. 디 인디잖아요. 아니 정말 무치기 디 숨도 하게 저디 디 인상 디 뜻이제 된다라 디 그런 지단 게 있어. 디 공원진이라는 미모 무시를 도스. 레버 인상 그 딩을 니마 같이 되나. 그게 다 자주 있습니다. 돈이 뜻이제 요아레스. 진짜 디리고 담아 있습니다. 바게티 뜻이제 된다. 레디 네 리버티 다운 되잖아요. 미카시 나래게 장아제 이내를 돈이다 중에서 뜻이 없어도 근데 말려버지 왕 무식하다 따다는데 this is
So this is therefore a person who mainly meditate on good teacher and the understanding of emptiness. That kind of person who mainly focuses on that compassion, good teacher, and so forth. And then they practice mantra. This is really efficient. So this is something also when people this kind of idea is reflected in when His Holiness gives the tantric teachings at the Kalachakra teaching, when he points this out how important those two are. When he teaches initially as like the kind of introductory teachings or the preparatory teachings, when he gives extensive teachings on Bodhicitta, on the mind and so forth, in order for people to understand, that this is really the basis, that's what we really need to focus on, and then it's appropriate to take this teaching. Because you're saying, some people don't take it that way, they don't really understand this point, and what they do is they leave those introductory teachings, they don't go to those teachings, they come to the actual Kalachakra initiation itself. So out of a lack of understanding of the importance of this basis.
没想到有的人呢，就是用这种更聪明的方法，结果还是没有听到要说的重点。
Preparatory teaching, not understanding that.
这个现在对。
Are there other questions?
问题呢？
这个都。
근데 직자왔으면 또 직자와도 번지 직자왔으면 찍고 있는 그게 직자왔으면
반제 직자왔으나?
근데 직자와도 이 터지는 번지
안 돼요.
여기 찍고 있는 직자왔지 직자왔으면 그러면 도달
His question is, he is asking about the simultaneous, this is part of these 20 arhats, the explanation of the 20 arhats that you find in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. So there's the talk of a simultaneous arhat and an arhat of simultaneous elimination. So from the point of view of the object of elimination being simultaneous. So a simultaneous arhat and an arhat who is simultaneous from the point of view from the point of view of the object of elimination. What is the difference between those two?
발진하는 시 베티코라 카가레. 발진하는 송대디 이 지원의 지는 딱 감순균이 무지저도 방바스. 딱 먼저기 단다 벤진의 무시고는 주지나 지대미 고마수기 이모당 지대네 대비 무지저도 방법이 시고라. 단다 직절세디 남림기 좀 와제. 다 세부터 가리순게 유나면은 나단지 지는 처럼 저는 통로 두진의 좀 와제. 직절도 파게 기지직의 야상계 그러지.
Oh, sorry, I just realized I misunderstood the question. Remember Geshe spoke previously about the instantaneous teachings and the teachings for a person who goes gradually. So here the instantaneous, the same word in Tibetan, so instantaneous or simultaneous is the same word. So here, simultaneous, simultaneously when instantaneously reaches a result or simultaneously reaches the result, so there's that kind of person, as opposed to in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, there's the teachings of a practitioner who simultaneously, it's simultaneous from the point of view of the object of elimination. So what is the difference between the two? And so Geshe-la is saying that from the point of view of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, there's a difference with regard to, or the explanation that was given earlier, those two are different. So the explanation that is given in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, that kind of practitioner is someone who eliminates the afflictions of the three realms simultaneously. So according to Benten Tsongkhapa in particular, there are the worldly types of afflictions, and then there are the afflictions that are beyond the world, so the non-worldly kind of, so the mundane and the non-mundane afflictions. So a person who eliminates those simultaneously, this person is called a practitioner from the point of view of simultaneously eliminating the objects of elimination. Whereas previously the kind of practitioner we were talking about here, who kind of goes gradually, or does not go gradually but simultaneously. So here this means like gradually would be the opposite, as in like going step by step, and then the opposite would be someone who kind of gets an instantaneous kind of result. So to be even more precise, this person in this very life doesn't have to go gradually, but has like a simultaneous, has like an instantaneous result. Of course, in general, they have to go gradually, they have to proceed gradually on their path. There's this question, Geshe-la's having this question about converse between people a little bit about, there is this explanation you find in the Tantric scriptures with regard to the basic clear-light mind. So the basic clear-light mind that we all have, this kind of clear-light mind. There seems to be an explanation that that clear-light mind, the lack of existence from its own side appears. So therefore, there's this idea, therefore, that if that is the case, so there was this back and forth a little bit but they were talking about something else and we came to understand that this was not the main point they were talking about, so it doesn't need to be mentioned. But the idea here is basically that the idea is that if to our basic clear-light mind emptiness appears, so it said that our basic clear-light mind is not tainted by the different types of obstructions, and since it is not tainted, then similar to a non-contaminated awareness that realizes emptiness directly, emptiness appears to such a mind. However, for us, this type of awareness doesn't arise for a long time. It only arises very briefly at the time of death, for example, the very sudden clear-light mind, which is the basic subject mind. Since it only arises for a very short time, we have no opportunity to actually enhance this, to actually develop this mind. But if it was possible, let's say it was possible through the generation of meditation, the generation of meditation, visualization, and so forth, if it was actually possible to hold on to this mind for some time, to remain, to stay at the time of death, that one remains with that clear-light mind without moving on, if one was able to do that, if one remains with that mind for long enough, then this object, the object of emptiness that directly appears to it, instead of merely just apprehending it, one would also be able to realize it. In other words, one would be able to directly realize emptiness. So that is this kind of, let's visualize kind of question here. So then we do not need to study, we do not actually need to study the different logical texts such as the collection of 6 texts by Nagarjuna and so forth. So we don't need to study about emptiness and so forth in order to realize reality, because we could just take that mind and train ourselves in actualizing this mind in such a way that we remain with the object for a long time and realize emptiness directly. So Geshe was saying, I seem to remember that this has been mentioned in kind of some of the tantric texts, and then we conversed with Gyan Tukub about this, and Gyan Tukub said, yes, there's a text, a Nyingma text by, I think something Kundu Sangwa, I understood the name was Kundu Sangwa, or like Samantabhadra, some kind of Samantabhadra, a text that has the name Samantabhadra in it. So anyway, so there it seems to be saying the same kind of thing, that the mind, that this clay-light mind actually is not obstructed by any of the obscurations, and rather that the actual nature of phenomena appears to this mind. And then Gyan Tukub, he asked a person who had studied this text, a follower of the Nyingma tradition, he checked with him, and this person basically said the same thing, that it seems that if one through the power of one's karmic force and so forth, that if one stays with this mind for long enough, when one recognizes the mind properly, one is actually able to transform it, or in other words, can transform it into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. So this is the kind of explanation, in short, that Gyan Tukub gave. I couldn't understand anything because of the quality of the mind. But anyway, so Geshe-la really said then, okay, that seems to really confirm it. It's not just that this is my doubt, that this is a possibility. It's not just that I think this is possible, but it seems that there's an actual scriptural explanation with regard to this point, that this is possible.
인문에 제 말에 상당 거예지래도 인문에 이나 당어서 잡을래 당고 기지 세워라 가서 직접도 건지 가가로 당어서 잡을래 당고 지기 다 우마 로숨 시스 로저 제목과 같이 조정남도 텐데 지셔나 다 상진도 유행지기 뒤로다 안티 나가지 차로로다 레라오도 차로로다 니라 우마 로숨 시다 신의 아니 기름곰 신의 조름곰 텐데지는 좋아래 뭐 로스미시 사비람사 조림 파기 말을 주샤는 레라와 차로로 다 산제라 이 기시디 마이나 디니시디 문에 마이나 다 우마마단 파주로나 아니 동고동자 차로로 다 디지디디 상당 외지래도 아니 기시디 제시딘지 유나 디문에 레 말에 뭐지디를 간제시 지지게 좋아
因此呢，如果今天对刚才所说的这一段内容有这样子的一种解释方法的话，那我们就应该去了解，那这个解释方法所讲的是事情到底是不是真的。如果今天是真的，也就是说真的有这样子的一种修行方法的话呢，那对于初学者来说，像我们这样的初学者，然后而且我们经历了成后，当成我们所想要去办的目标的话，那做这个方法是真的是事实上可以用的一个方法。那说实在，我们其实并不需要像我们现在这种学习一样，就是先花个4年时间去学中观的论点，那学完中观论点对自己的这个情况了解之后，然后再接着呢才去学习大圆满大手印等等的方法。其实如果这种方法是真的话，我们不需要先透过学习4年中观论点这样的方法，你要直接进入大圆满大手印这个修行，那就能够达到我们想要成就的这种目的。但是如果刚才所讲的这种解释方法，它不是符合事实不是的话，那我们在没有经过4年左右的时间学中文这样的修行之下，就直接进入到圆满大手印的修习的话，那我们所做的这种修行恐怕就是无意义的，就我们真的会不知道我们自己在修些什么。那因此呢，我们首先要去判断，就是经书上有这样讲，就是像刚才傅老师描述的，经书上有做这样的解释，你再进一步的去问是，那经书上所做的这些解释，它到底是事实还是不是事实？
So, therefore, the idea is here that we need to really check this. Is this actually possible or not? And then how would that be beneficial? That needs to be investigated.
但这当地我给他干那种差点，对，我那现在到往学用嘛用，这就现在嘛到，我们同样了，其实这些位呢，我不会给他那个很对的了。你说今年他多来讲我的给他叫他差点了，对呀。 那第二个剧呢，要上当回来的，可第我就学二个剧呢，阿里他动画的，但阿里二个剧呢，二个的给学去上当回去，第几的，第头的这个上次有的声音的是出来呢，属于上次有呢，这个都来呢，竞争卡的空卡的，这个没都来呢，竞争卡的空卡的。
So in general here we say this is, we can say this is a difficult issue, a difficult tantric issue, and so it would be someone who has received tantric initiations, who has received people, who has taken tantric initiations, who has received them, who should engage in that kind of investigation. So if someone hasn't received tantric initiation, it's said to be dangerous and kind of will fall down. And so, of the two, the sutric and the tantric teachings are much more famous and much more renowned nowadays. But we should see is this a mistake or not. We should really see is this mistaken or not to do this kind of practice here. What is the danger? So if there's really great danger that one falls, that one experiences downfall, well then is it really okay to practice this or not? So this is something you should think about, you should reflect on, you could discuss it.
无论是认同或不认同的这些看法呢，希望都可以在明天的课程当中提出来。任何人提出任何看法都可以的。不过必须要以经论或者理论作为根据，有没有任何经论或理论根据可以提出来？那都欢迎在明天课程当中提出来讨论。
多年到日我结果结果那对于结果两多那对光年光不在了。